into our purpose in life to make a difference. Prior to getting into this enlightening session, there are certain security protocols. May I now request my colleague to give you a brief on the procedures, please? Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Your safety is our utmost concern. I would request you to please acquaint yourself with this auditorium. You have two fire exits, each on your right, marked with fire exit signages. This building is equipped with state-of-art safety systems. In case of an emergency requiring evacuation, please remain calm and wait for the instruction from security personnel who will guide you to safe assembly area. Thank you very much and have a safe day ahead.
Now, may I kindly request Mr. Pranjit Sharma to take this event ahead? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shreya. Good morning and welcome to everybody. Uh, to take time off on a working day in the morning is terrific, but that's for a very good reason, and that's Harshji and his wonderful book. I had the occasion to read it earlier, and I've seen how the book has really made an impact over the last few months on a lot of people. Uh, I work with the CFO board, and for those of you who don't know, we are a group of financial leaders of the country across startups, unicorns, legacy companies from India, global corporations. And the objective of the group is to create a peer platform, not just for financial leaders, but for all strategic thinkers on how to contribute to a growing India. This session today is a continuation of our regular series of interactions with business leaders, policymakers, to help enrich your understanding of what's happening. With this, I'm going to stop. We will be recording this session, and many of you have joined online to view this. I'm going to now request Mr. Mariwala and Mr. Mahalingam to take their seats. And we'd also like to welcome both of them for this session, please. Please go ahead. Thank you so much. I'd now like to request Mr. Malingam to begin the proceedings.
Good morning and thank you for being here. Just as an introduction to Mr. Mariwala, this is actually a think tank, CFO board. Pranjal already gave you an indication of what we are attempting to do. We are not a lobbying group, but we are essentially people who are working towards new developments and understanding the priorities of the industry and putting forward our own view. It's a collective effort. People do get together. Many of the CFOs, some of them are CEOs, they get together and then they formulate views. The way that we have tried to format this is to get Harsh to talk about, give his presentation. He has got a list of things. We'll keep the book as an anchor, but more importantly to really conveys a lot of messages, whether it is in relation to what is expected of a CFO at this point in time. What are the new challenges that are going to be existing in the new challenges that are existing in the corporate world, including the sustainability issues and so on. How do we build succession in the organization and so on? And therefore, use this as an anchor for the purpose of having an interactive session. After he makes a presentation, I'll ask a few questions. I'll engage him in a discussion on a few topics that I think are very, very important, and then we will throw it open to people to the members to ask questions. I have read the book, and of course, the fact that we are going to have this session probably impelled me to read the book before I would have normally read that. And I found an interesting thing in the sense that I'm also a Siddhamite. I graduated in 1967, 2 or 3 years before Harsh graduated from there. and therefore that was an interesting one. And some of the people that he writes about, including an encounter with one of the multinationals, that person happened to be my classmate, Kiki Nadi said. So it's an interesting one. There are lots of anecdotes that we can follow in this. But what I particularly found very interesting, because most of us have essentially been involved in the transformation of companies from a small one to the large one, as to the practice that was adopted during that period in terms of whether it is in the product strategy, whether it is in terms of people strategy, and so on. And both of us sit on the board of JSW Steel, and I watched him in action in terms of the passion that he brings in with regard to many of the, especially with regard to the human resources area. And I found that resonating in the book itself. So I thought I understood him a lot better in terms of his approaches after reading this book. Although I've been witness to many of the sessions that we have had there, because both of us sit in the NRC, which he chairs. So with that, I would now leave it to Harsh to make his presentation, and then I'll engage him in a few questions and thereafter open it for question and answers. Thank you.
So maybe I'll sit here and talk only if it is okay. Thank you, Malingam. Thank you, Pranjal, and thank you, ICICI Bank, for hosting this event. Very happy to be with all of you. I didn't know that I knew so many people in this fraternity, including Milin, whom I worked with how many years? 15, 20 years? 16 years. Very well, almost like a right-hand man. Shankar Raman, many others, So, so what I will do is I am supposed to speak, if I remember rightly, about 40 minutes, Malingam.
Yeah.
And then after that, we will have some dialogue with Mr. Malingam, and then a Q&A session. We expect to wind up between 12:30 and 1, roughly, yeah. So my talk will be on two different subjects. One will be my own personal journey and what it took me to win in the marketplace. And the second will be more to do with the changing role of CFO and the challenges I see in that journey. And I don't know whether I can add value to all of you, but whatever is I identified, I ran it through him. So he said, yes, you're on the right track. So I hope that I can add value to all of you on that front also. And then we will have a dialogue with him. I'm sure he's come out with some questions. He read the book. So, and then open house. So I started at a very young age. I started working at the age of 20. I have just finished my graduation from Sydenham College in Bombay. At that time, it was reputed to be, I think, one of the best colleges in, I was told, Asia. And now it's gone down, I was told. It's not nowhere near there. But luckily, I got in on merits. But I was not that bright enough to get in on merits in the management school, which I wanted to do. I was never interested in becoming a chartered accountant, because to me, being an entrepreneur was the only thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to work for anybody. I didn't want to practice so-called boring subject of chartered accountancy. So I said, no, I have to be in business. And I didn't have any clue in terms of what I was going to do. But one thing was clear, I wanted to be my own boss. So I couldn't get into MBA school. Those days, the options were also limited. We only had IIM, Ahmedabad, IIM, Calcutta, and Bajaj. And I wanted to study further. My father declined and said, nothing doing, you're not going abroad. So you're joining the organization. At that time, a family managed company in Bombay with me, my father, and 3 of his brothers managing the company. It was a typically family managed organization. The name of the company was Bombay Oil Industries, and also located in the heart of commodity markets. I think the biggest commodity market or wholesale market definitely in India, or maybe in the world. So this was in Masjid Bandar, which is a very chaotic place. Just to enter the office, it's a big task. There's a lot of traffic, handcarts, lorries, no parking place, dirty, full of people. So that's how I began my journey in Bombay Oil Industries. And there was nobody to guide me, because I think the company was managed by my uncles and my father, and there were no professionals. So my father told me just start exploring um, and find out what interests you. And we had three different businesses. We had one business which was in chemicals, one in spice extracts, and one in bulk edible oils, unbranded mainly. So in that exploration, I realized that if I could convert this unbranded to a branded business, the business will be far more profitable, it'll be far more sustainable, because being in a commodity business didn't interest me. The margins are wafer thin, and it's not predictable. Your profits are not predictable. Some years, depending on how you cover the raw material, make money. Some other years, you lose money. So I saw an opportunity to convert that from unbranded to branded. And it so happened that we were supplying a lot of our coconut oil to a company in East, and they were packing it in their own small packs, in their own brands. And my uncles used to say that, why don't you do something like that? So somewhere the triggers happened in my mind. I had also, prior to joining Bombay Oil Industries, I had gone abroad for 2 3 months just after my graduation. And I was enamored by the so-called modern trade, fancy grocery stores, which never existed in early 70s in India. So that consumer product entry was something which happened partly because of what I saw in USA, partly because I realized there was an opportunity to do it in India. And that's how I entered the consumer products. In a way, it suited me because I strongly believe that all of us have some God-given strengths, and most of us don't know what our strengths are. Um, so I actually thought that this business suited me in terms of my personality. At that time, I was a very shy introvert person. I'm still relatively, I've become extrovert, but shy extrovert, I would say. But I didn't want to go to Delhi. The whole business, the whole way to succeed in business those days was to get a license, the so-called license Raj, and I didn't want to do that. I was not cut out for talking to bureaucrats and getting favors from them. So in this business, which was relatively um, overall completely de-licensed, I didn't have to go to Delhi, and people get surprised to know that for my own work, I have been to Delhi just once or twice in my last 50 years, because I've never needed to go. And only when once we were exporting coconut oil in small packs and the prices went up, the government banned exports. And I had to go and advocate to them, this is something which you built over a period of time. If you ban, then whatever you've done over the last 5 10 years is wasted. So I was able to ultimately make them change that stance. But beyond that, I have not gone to Delhi for my own work. Then later on, I became president of FICCI, and that made me go to Delhi. But I was completely at sea in terms of how to deal with bureaucrats and ministers. And I have never donated a single paisa. I'm just not trying to boast, but not a single paisa to any political party. Not anybody's asked me also. So in a way, it's good. I'm very happy to be away from the government. So I actually started touring in smaller towns. In smaller towns, starting from Nagpur, I took a car and appointed one supervisor, and started appointing distributors. Many places there were no hotels to stay in towns like Amaravati or Varda. I started staying with my distributors. So actually started doing work on ground in the marketplace for appointing distribution, retailing products to the dealers. And I think that gave me a very good grounding in terms of how the business is being conducted. And then on, it came to promoting brands. So advertising agency. I spent one day with the advertising agency just to learn how advertising is done. So very much a bottoms up kind of approach to learning. And I still believe that I think every individual can learn a lot from the bottom up. So when management trainees join us, one of my first advice is forget you are an MBA. You are a human being and you have to learn from people down the line at a sales distributor level, at a factory workman level. Because if you have that high-handedness in terms of I know everything, people stop telling you anything and you'll stop learning. So that's how I started doing it. Business picked up well. I had to expand gradually because there was a huge resistance to recruiting talent. In a family managed company, talent is a cost. So I had to take few people prove it that it's worth recruiting those people and then expand. So it took 4 or 5 years for me to expand our reach to an all India distribution network. And then our market share increased in coconut oil segment. We were about 15% market share. We were stagnating, and that time I realized that if we had to do something different in terms of getting increased market share. So we said, can we innovate in this segment? At one level, innovating in a coconut oil segment, which is relatively commodity kind of a product. We did something in terms of product quality, clarity of oil, but beyond that, we needed to do something bigger. So we said that can we actually use the packaging route to innovate? And the whole market that time was intense for coconut oil. It's a very large market. Coconut oil is a very big market. People don't realize I think it's larger than the shampoo market also. We sell something like 5 crore bottles every month. So can we convert the market from tin to plastic? Because plastics is cheaper. Plastics is relatively more attractive to a consumer. It's easier to use. So we thought we had a winner on hands. And when we went to the trade, and we do a lot of, in consumer products, we do a lot of inciting. We do market research, but more than market research, we actually go to our own consumers, dealers, and try to do inciting at a personal level. Because that kind of in-depth knowledge of the consumer will never get it through market research. Market research is done more to verify your hypothesis, just to get a confirmation that you're on the right track. But all the answers cannot come through market research. You have to go personally at all levels to the consumer and find out from them the reaction to your products. So when we went to the trade, which is the intermediary to go to the consumer, there was a huge resistance saying we will not stock plastics, because prior to us, maybe about 5-7 years back, somebody had launched plastics in a square shaped bottle with a lot of oil on the outer surface of the bottle. The dealer closed the shop next day, opened, all the rats had eaten the plastic bottle. So not only the product was damaged, but the shop also was damaged. But one thing I must say, are entrepreneurs and those who are entrepreneurs, and some of them I met just now, you never give up. So I said we have to crack it because it's a huge opportunity for us. Plastics is much cheaper. We can give a product at a cheaper price point. It's more convenient to the consumer. So we went back to the drawing board, went to our packaging vendor, design a bottle where the rat will find it difficult to get a grip, went to our manufacturing, ensure that there is not a single drop of oil on the outer surface of the bottle, and did that and kept in a rat cage for one day, took pictures, nothing happened. And once we were sure, we went very aggressive. We took pictures, gave it to the field force, and actually we had monthly targets. I used to monitor monthly what is the plastic contribution to the overall our brand sales. It went from a small single digit to almost, it took 4 to 5 years for us to become market leaders. And in that process, because we also did multiple innovations, the winter coconut oil freezes, so we went again with a wide mouth bottle. But our market share just jumped up from 15% to 50% over 4 or 5 years. And then we went, we said over a period of time in mid 90s, we realized there was a huge market in Bangladesh. And the whole market again was intense, dominated by local players. So when we went there, we saw a great opportunity. Whatever innovations we had done in India, we rolled them out straight away in Bangladesh altogether. In 3 to 4 years, we were the market leaders. We still have the market leaders. We have 80% market share in that market. We are the largest Indian company, I think, in Bangladesh. We are the only listed company in Bangladesh, and it's a very profitable business. So we've been able to roll out those innovations in a different market and also succeed. So since then, I realized that innovation can play a very important role in business's success, and you have to continuously innovate because it's a matter of time others will copy you, and you have to be 2 steps ahead of others. So if I look at my portfolio of products, in all the brands we are present, we are market leaders in that particular segment. So for example, in a large segment like shampoos, we are present in a segment of shampoo which is an anti-lice shampoo. And there we have a market leader. We have 70% market share in medical anti-lice shampoo and oil. So whether it is oats or whether it is coconut oil or premium edible oils of Ola, we are market leaders. And I strongly feel that market leadership gives you great advantage in terms of not only getting economies of scale, but also you have the pricing power, especially in consumer products where it's branded and there is inflation. If you're not a market leader, you are at the mercy of the market leader. When will that market leader take up the prices? And until the market leader takes up the prices, you just cannot take up the prices. So this gives us the pricing power. Even when the raw material prices go down, you have an option of not reducing prices and increase margins. I'm not saying that we go on doing that all the time, but it gives you great handle to manage profits, being a market leader. And apart from getting economies of scale, which just not in terms of sourcing, but in case of consumer products, in terms of our advertising cost, which is our bigger cost today. We spend more on advertising and promotion than on our people cost. Roughly, I think our people cost must be in the range of 4-5% of our total cost structure. Our advertising cost in the range of 10%. So we get great economies of scale in terms of advertising costs, sales costs because of our market leadership. And at that time, we said that we have to choose the right portfolio of products where we can become market leaders. Because if I enter a segment like, say, shampoos, which is dominated by multinationals, Procter and Gamble, Levers, L'Oreal, and each of them having 2 to 3 brands, global research backing. They understand the consumer because they are present in this category across the world. Our ability to become market leader in those big categories where MNCs are leaders is going to be very tough. So we have crafted our overall product portfolio based on analyzing where there are opportunities for us to grow and become market leader. So if in shampoos we realize that these segments like anti-lice shampoo is too small for big players, we acquired the brand from Procter and Gamble and we became market leaders. And we acquired, they were only in shampoos at that time. We said that can we offer the same product in medical anti-lice oil, which we did within 6 months, and the sales just went up substantially because of the oil offering. So if I look at all this, either you pioneer a segment or you innovate in the segment, and that's what we've done. In a segment like Saffola is pioneering in a segment in a positioning an oil and identifying oil which is good for the heart. In segment like Revive, which is a fabric starch, again pioneering. So if I look back at our overall product portfolio, either it is we've pioneered a segment or we've innovated and succeeded in the segment. And I think that's at least my learning is that if you, in a highly competitive environment, you have to be differentiated. It could be depending on the kind of business one is in. It could be through some technology. It could be through patent if you're in pharmaceutical. It could be some service innovation if you're in, say, pizza delivery like Domino's, or now we're talking of Zomato doing a 10-minute delivery or whatever else. But I think the key thing is you have to be differentiated in a highly competitive environment. If you offer a Me Too product, the chances of a success are much lesser. You can do it on a lower price point product, but unless your cost structure is dramatically innovative, offering something at low price point to me is a temporary way to enter the market. It is not sustainable because it's a matter of time others will be able to offer the product at similar or lower price points. And you don't want to be in a category where there are huge price wars to gain competitive advantage. So my first, I would say first piece is that, okay, you have to create a right to win, you have to be differentiated. Now, I think the second one I'm going to talk about is talent and culture. It's a myth to believe that only a few businesses will require the best quality talent. I think every business has to have very good talent. And when the business of Bombay Oil Industries was shifted to Marico in the year 1990, it gave me a great opportunity to recruit a new team. And the first recruit I did was head of HR, because I realized that if I have to attract talent, no amount of me saying that we are going to be professional, we are not going to be a family managed organization. The perceptions about Masjid Bandar, so many family members managing, by then 4 of my cousins had joined business. So there was a strong perception this is a family managed organization. And in a family managed organization, everything works through influence. So I made it very clear to my head of HR that you bat for me. We will be completely professional. We will have very high levels of empowerment. Influence will not work within the organization. And even today, if somebody asks me for a favor, at the most I will tell people that you evaluate that person. But beyond that, the decision is yours. I will not interfere. I think that's played an important role in changing the perception of the company from a family owned company to a professionally managed company. So the first challenge was, how do I create awareness for Marico? It's a new company. We had two brands, Safola and Parachute, at that time. At that time, the turnover was about 80 crores in early 90s. And we went to the ad agency and told them, can you design a campaign with a very limited budget, because it's a new company. I can't afford to spend too much money on advertising. So, which will help us attract talent. So they came with a brilliant set of ads with a lot of shock value. So the first ad talked about mass killer nabbed, leveraging on the brand Safola. The second one talked about 200 employees walk out of Bombay. The third one talked about Lalitaji. Those days, Lalitaji was the brand ambassador for, I think, Surf. Lalitaji boycotts coconut oil. So I think those two insertions of these three ads really made a big impact. And I realized that when you have limited resources and very high aspirations, then you're forcing people to think differently. I think that's when people start thinking innovatively. So within a short period of time, I recruited something like 30, 40 senior managers. And coming from different backgrounds, people coming from Tata's, some people came from MNCs, Asian Paints, and very quickly realized that it is become a melting pot of different cultures, because each one came with their own set of beliefs depending on the kind of background they were coming from. And there was chaos within the organization. For each decision, each one behaved differently. So that made me think that what do we do? And I wrote down some of my thoughts at that time. Some random thoughts based on my first 20 years of working in Bombay Oil Industries, and shared with my team. It evoked a very positive response from them, because at that time, relatively, I'm talking of early 90s, culture, values was not so much practiced by corporates. I was very clear that I have to finalize values, and I don't want those values to be just pasted in the reception and people talking cynically about those values. So I, with my team, finalized the values. We went to the next 2 or 3 layers of management, told them these are the values, we want value addition, divided into small groups, got recommendations from them, went to all our locations, all our factories, all our sales location, international markets, and talked about the need to have the values and culture. And at the end of those deliberations over the next 1 or 2 years, we had a whole set of suggestions on how to improve. So what is the culture of Marico, and why it is important to have a strong culture, and why culture is a source of competitive advantage for any organization? So I wanted a culture based on my past success in innovation and pioneering. I wanted a culture which was very innovative. So how do you drive innovation in the organization was a big challenge. The step one was to attract very good talent. So since then, 1990, we had a management trainee program where we've been doing it every year since then, going to management campuses, uh, CA recruitment, and every year we take about 20, 25 numbers of management trainees who go through our 9 month training program at our end. Then you need to have diversity in the talent. You have to have diversity, not only gender diversity, but diversity from different parts of country, educational diversity. So I think diversity is very important. And then you put them in an organization structure which is very flat. We have a very limited number of hierarchies within the organization. The moment you have a flat organization structure with capable talent, then the senior leadership is forced to delegate. And when you empower people at a young age, I think they own it much more, and you reduce bureaucracy, you reduce backbiting, gossiping. So our maximum layers from the top to bottom are just 4 or 5. Most function is about 4. I think that really helped. On top of that, we said that now this is not enough. We need to create an environment of openness. So where people can talk to each other without any organizational boundaries or organizational roots. So if I want to talk to somebody else or anybody else from finance wants to talk to marketing at a middle level, they can do it directly. They need not go to their bosses and do it through their bosses. So very open culture. We promote openness by having open houses at all our locations every year at the end of the year. And there's an open house. People can ask any awkward questions to the management. We call each other by first names. There is no tie and suit culture in the organization, which again puts some barriers. We have we have sessions with the boss and subordinates in terms of how the relationships are. So when you look at openness from different angles, you reinforce openness on a perpetual basis. In addition to openness, we wanted to have very high levels of trust. So we said that can we actually, how do we pass the strong trust signals to the people? So since 1990, we've not had musters in the organization. We've not had anything like casual leave or sick leave. If you're sick, we trust you. If you have casual work, we trust you. People maintain their own leave records. People maintain, you don't have to go to bosses for getting your expense statements authorized. But if we'll do random audits, if somebody misuses, that person is asked to go straight away. So I think all this has helped openness, trust, and in addition to all that, I think the top management plays a very important role in demanding innovation. So, for example, if a brand is making a presentation to me at the beginning of a brand presentation, they will know that I'm going to ask question to them. What is the innovation you plan? And it's just not new product. Innovation can be a retail innovation. It could be innovation in advertising. It could be media innovation. Anything. It could be very small innovation also. But I think everybody has to think innovation within the organization. We also have innovation awards within the organization where internally people are encouraged to put in entries. On average, we get about 15 to 20 innovation awards entries, and then that's selected by a jury, not only innovation, but values awards. And that gets presented to our town hall events at all our locations at the end of the year. So the other thing which is very, very crucial for driving innovation within the organization, you have to encourage people to experiment, because unless you experiment and remove the fear of failure, because the fear of failure is the biggest hindrance to innovation. If I as management punish somebody who has taken step of experimenting which has not succeeded and failed, and if that person is punished by not getting increment or promotion, then you are sending a very strong signal that you are punishing failures. And it's very clear that you have to actually analyze the failure, learn from that, and go on encouraging people to experiment. If the stakes are very big, and in consumer product, the stakes are big, especially when it comes to launching new products, because a launch would mean advertising on television, press, minimum budget would be in the range of 20-30 crores for a launch if you just want to launch a product. So we said that can we prototype it? And you can launch it in one retail chain, or you can launch it in one city and reduce the incidence, the risk. But whenever there's a dilemma, my answer to the team has been, why don't you prototype? You can go on discussing whether to do it or not, but there is no shortcut to actually finding out what is the consumer response until you go into the marketplace. And I think we go on delaying, analyzing, analysis paralysis, and I think agility is very important in today's environment. You have to move fast. If you are doubtful, tell your bosses or tell whoever it is, why don't you experiment on a small scale and see what is the result, rather than go on discussing and debating without endlessly. So I think that's how we have created a culture of innovation. It's very easy to finalize values. It's relatively difficult to convert the values into a culture. And in the first 3-4 years, I must have spent a lot of my time in culture building. And still it is very much a top management responsibility. Every year we do a survey on all our values at all our locations. And if any location has got any score on any particular value, HR steps in and tries and improves. The value scores are shared with the board. So culture is taken very, very seriously. For new entrants coming into the organization, one full day is spent on why this culture, uh, and what do we expect you to do, including leadership style. In Marico, if somebody is autocratic, that person will not be able to survive because there'll be huge resistance to that person's leadership style. We want leaders who are participative, who are open to listening to others, who don't have egos. So that's how we build the culture. And I think overall, I'm happy that we've been able to sustain that culture over a period of time. And when I meet some of the ex employees who left, and maybe Milind is one person here, is whenever I've checked with them, they always say that one of our best learning and experience in our own journey has been our stint with Marico. So that itself, I think I really feel good when I hear that. So I think that's as far as talent and culture is concerned. But every time there has been an opportunity to whenever there is a vacancy, we try and improve the overall quality of talent within the organization, because that's when you have an opportunity and you can improve. So this is my piece on talent culture. I'll now go on the governance part. Uh, my biggest, shall I say, angst against promoters who have converted their company into a public limited company is the mindset that the company belongs to them. To me, that is the starting point. If I have gone public, the company doesn't belong to me. I may have promoted it, I may have been a sole shareholder, but once I go public, it's no more my company. Moment you think that it is my company, then you start taking liberties in terms of governance. And that, to me, that is the biggest, shall I say, mindset change promoters need to bring in. There is enough of proof these days in terms of all this ILFS and Yes Bank and many other examples where they've emerged, and the government also rightfully is acting. Uh, Maybe they've gone overboard in some cases in terms of related party transactions, things like that. But still, I think this is one thing which has to take at least as a role as a CFO. It's very, very important that you drive this change within your organization, maybe with your promoters, with who's the MD. But to me, this is a must, because today all the stakeholders, whether it is your shareholders, whether it's your employees or future employees, your board, everybody is asking the first question: what is your score on? Now the whole governance has got expanded to ESG. So what is your score on ESG? And I think the fact that it's a good thing that all the stakeholders are demanding this, and this is forcing organizations to move in the right way as far as ESG is concerned. And I think it's very, very important that uh, organizations go on improving this, because they will benefit themselves. And I just want to give one or two examples. You have to be an outlier in this case. Uh, so, in my case, now I have an office very close by, and it's owned by Marico, but part of it is used by my son for his investment office. It's a his own business. It's not very large also. It may be occupying about maybe 500 or 1,000 square feet office. It's a part of Marico's office. So one is to say this is my company. Other way is to say no, it's not my company, and he has to pay the rent for that office. So I actually asked my son to pay rent to Marico for the office he occupies. Similarly, I use the office for some of my personal charity initiatives. But the key thing is, even that small thing, when you're an outlier, people start talking about it, and then your image improves in the capital markets. So you are then regarded as almost like a top of the governance, and that again benefits you in terms of your attracting investments, overall your PE ratios and things like that. To me, governance is beyond just compliance. You have to, many times there are conflicts between the company and each of the stakeholders. For example, as a promoter, I had 2 or 3 times conflict. whether my interests come first or organization's interests come first. So when in Marico was formed, the brands were owned by Bombay Oil Industries, and all the when we went public, all the investors, future potential investors, they said this is if you remove the brand from Marico, what will happen to Marico? So we said that let's transfer the brands to Marico, and we did it at a very low valuation, much lower than the market valuation, because we wanted to give a strong signal that yes, we are looking at the organization's interest first and not the promoter's interest. Then when it came to in 2014, I stepped down as managing director and gave the reins to a professional. So the key at that time was a conflict. I was not fully ready to step down. At that time, I was 63. But when I discussed with the board, and the board felt that it is in the organization's interest that you step down. You've been in this position for many years now. You build the business from, I mean, in a way, you built it from 20 to 40, 45 years, and the company needs a new way of thinking. And you also have to give a strong signal down the line that it's you are supporting internal candidates in terms of succession planning. And then there was another issue at a family that, okay, normally in family owned companies, the son takes over. In my case, I was the only family member in the business. So unlike Dabur or Pidilite, where there were multiple family members, here there was only me. And so I had a issue at the family level. Okay, how can you, what will happen? You know, what will society think? But I again took that stance of the organization's interest come first, and then the stakeholders' interest. And I think looking back, that has been a good decision because overall we've seen a very good rise in our market cap growth, a new way of managing the company. It also has given me a great opportunity to many things which I wanted to do, and now I can do it because I have the time. So I think the same thing is applicable in terms of employees. You know, I've had multiple times some employees have done exceedingly well. They've been my right hands, great. And at some stage they've started losing relevance. So do you reward loyalty? Or do you ask what happens if that person is weak? And I've again taken the stance of the organization's interest comes first. So you, if need be, ask that person to go. Do a human treatment. I don't throw him out on the road. Give that person a time, encouragement. But ultimately, weak links in an organization cannot exist, especially at senior and middle levels. To me, that again is a part of governance. You know. So I think these are my thoughts on my own journey. How much time I've taken? Almost 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I have now thought maybe with you I can talk about the changing role of CFO. And if you want, one option is that if there any of them have any questions or clarification on this, we can finish this and go to the changing role of CFO.
Okay. No, I think we'll just I have a few questions.
Yeah.
And then of course one of the pieces that he's supposed to cover is the changing role of CFO, which we need to still get to. That's an important piece.
Yeah.
But first is, you know, this title of your book, very well, how did it come about? Inspired, you know, some aha moment when you decide to use your name in a different context.
So I work with entrepreneurs and helping them scale up. So, you know, it's my way of giving something back to the society. So we today have about 850 entrepreneurs in what we call Ascent. And so I gave a challenge to a few entrepreneurs, suggest me name, and one of the names came up was Harsh Reality. I loved the name, and everybody has loved the name. So that was one. And number two, since you're on this topic, you know, that if you see the cover of the book also, it is different. It's very minimalistic. It is innovative. It is transparent. And I went to a lady who just specialized in book designing rather than going to a publisher. And she came up with this design. Again, it's got very good feedback. And in a way, it reflects me in terms of transparency, innovation, and minimalistic.
Good. You know, I wanted to ask you a question. You covered your journey into the capital markets and so on, the IPO, because you had to do the IPO at a point in time, and you did that. But you know, and you've done very well in terms of market capitalization. It's one of the exceedingly good market capitalization. Uh, does it drive you, market capitalization? The second point thing is, how does this quarter on quarter kind of phenomenon that you have, does it benefit you, or do you consider it a problem?
So I must say, and I must give a lot of credit to Milind, and I'll take a larger subject of market capitalization and what did we do to improve our capitalization. We had a big challenge. When we went public, we were quoted at a multiple of 14. We had a battle with levers. Our multiple went down to 7 or 8, and we were perceived as a branded commodity player, not a branded FMCG player. So we were not getting the multiples of 30, 40 of all the FMCG companies. And we took a series of actions around you. I don't even remember, but Milind was one of my, shall I say, he gave a lot of ideas in this. So we said that can we show to the market that we are an FMCG company, and what do we need to do to show to the market? So we had said that the quarterly performance, we have to consistently show top line, bottom line growth. If we are a branded commodity player, we will not be able to do so. But if we are a branded FMCG player, we should create a track record. And I think 40 quarters roughly, Milind? 50 quarters we did got growth in top line, bottom line. That just changed the perception. In addition to that, we took many other steps in terms of transparency, improving the product portfolio, value addition. But our market cap now, today, we are almost at same level as any FMCG company, in the range of, I think, obscenely high, but in the range of about 45 to 50 multiple.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of effort went into creating market cap.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've had situations where we had to fight a battle with levers. And we knew that we had to protect our maybe you can give me a
yeah. Is this the one?
Okay, let's see. So, it's in the past, and whenever we've had some occasion where we feel that the markets, we have to make a sacrifice in profits for some, in this case, fighting a competition, or we have some growth opportunity where our profits may not grow. We have transparently gone to the market in advance before they realize it and told them this is what we're facing. But I think one thing I've learned, that when you're transparent, it really pays off. So we proactively go to the market and be transparent in terms of our business, what headwinds if they're facing, or a certain strategic stance we may be taking in terms of fighting competition. And proactively informing market really helps you in terms of getting their confidence.
Oh, so you are a satisfied customer from from being in the capital market, and that driving you to do a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it feels good. I don't think wealth beyond a point it excites me at a personal level. But for the organization also, it's good that you get mentioned. There's a pride in the organization. It also helps you to acquire companies. We've had once or twice QIPs. Once, when we acquired a few businesses, we needed funds. So in a way, it gives you flexibility to make acquisitions. But in an FMCG business, our problem is actually the other way around, because we generate cash, so we don't know. So our payout ratio is almost 90% of our profits every year.
I'm going to ask one last question before I turn it over to, this is regarding digital approach. I mean, because you were quite early in terms of automating, computerizing. And now, of course, we have gone far beyond automation now in terms of the digitalization program that companies have in terms of interacting with the with the automated environment. What are the big challenges there? Are there any lessons that you would like to talk about?
So if I look back at beyond these in the IT entry in the organization, I think one thing we realized that for any organizational initiative which is important, you have to remove escape buttons. So what happens is when it comes to, I'm just taking one or two random examples. When we launched our ERP program, normally you ask your existing talent to do their normal role plus ERP role. To us, this was an important initiative. So we said that we will have an exclusive team only looking after ERP at a different location, cross-functional team. We put them at one of our factories. For 9 months, we launched ERP completely error-free. We just as smooth as anything. We got some awards from SAP also for that. But the key thing is to when you are bringing in change, and these are very important change, you have to remove escape buttons by asking those people not to do any other job. And number two, that team has to be the best team you have. So the same thing happened when we launched our distributor software, where we wanted our distributors, and I'm talking now 25 years back, our distributors to log in every day. What were their sales to retailers, stocks, and things like that. So the biggest challenge was how do you make distributor realize that this is important. We removed 5 sales reps who were IT savvy. We said your job is only to convince distributors, to convince them the benefits of IT and ensure that you train their people to log in so that we get all the data. So again, removing escape buttons, have the right people, and multiple examples I can give. Whenever we wanted to, when we wanted to expand outside India earlier to the part of India business, it would always get neglected because India is a large market, exports was not existing until we created a separate structure, international business, senior level, without any export base. But your whole job is to create international business for us, including making acquisitions happen. So roughly today we are about 2,500 crore business in international, but we are present in few countries. If I had not done that, we would have been struggling to go international because the skills required to go international are very different than managing Indian business.
Any questions? Okay, Shakti, how about you begin?
You once again. Just a couple of thoughts. One was, in your innovation, plastic
qualified some post-wash people who stop using. But so far the market is growing, but you never know over next 10, 15 years what will happen. But I think the key thing now we are doing is we are going into many other uh, segments. So our overall dependence will reduce. We are going big in food. I'm happy to see one product which we just acquired, a healthy food product here. Two elements, two elements. I didn't even taste this product. I just tasted it. But we acquired. So basically, the other thing is some of the entry barriers in FMCG have vanished or reduced. Earlier, it was supposed to be very defensive, but with e-commerce coming in, with digital marketing coming in, we've seen a whole host of new age FMCG businesses entering through D2C space. So brands like Mama Earth, True Elements, we ourselves have acquired 3 brands in this space. We bought Beardo, we bought just bought 2 Elements and one other brand, just Herbs. So they are disrupting FMCG players. Currently, their overall contribution is low, but the entry barrier in terms of advertising costs, television, they don't advertise. They don't have to go to the trade also. They can only sell it through Amazon and online. So we have to wait and watch how these disruptions are panning out. But what we have done is we have proactively formed a different arm, because again, I don't want my existing team to have escape button. This is too small, and they are again away from a different premise, and the skills required to manage this B2C business are very different than traditional in terms of digital marketing and so on. So we have said that we have to be in that segment. So even if FMCG get disrupted, we have good hold on this. So I think these two would be the key. And of course, the bigger worry is the overall attrition levels and people leaving. But that's okay, we lose people because to some extent we are poaching around, but also we are able to attract them.
Thanks. So, Adi, I think at the outset, I would say people who have worked with you fortunate. I have done an MBA better than doing a chartered accountancy, that's for sure, because I think the wisdom, knowledge, and learning, and maybe it was evidence that you didn't go through the MBA, so you created something which is differentiated and value adding to it. I think salute your entrepreneurship, wisdom, and knowledge, which you are kind enough to share with us in many ways. 2 parts of my question. One, in terms of as an person who's given multinationals the run for their money, and in spite of all the challenges in the new age world of today, how do you see that some learning, some things which you would like to do differently, and maybe for the times, this is the way you see the FMCG shaping up for you and maybe for the country. That's one part. The second is, and as we enable the startup ecology across, and we are building it up across the globe, we work in family offices and HNIs and CXO levels. The key challenge what we see is that as we wanting to take the Indian startups to global, and which is where one of the biggest pieces is that we are still not there, and it's a huge challenge if we are wanting these guys to be really global. What are the few key pieces you, either as an investor or you as a guide, would want the Indians to create multinationals, because the entrepreneurial spirit which is here, it is phenomenal. So I think 2 parts. One is your learning piece, and which can be different. The other is that to take Indian startups to global, or maybe Indian entrepreneurs to be really, looking at giving the run for the money in their own country.
So let me try and handle the second question first. How does I'm confining myself to more branded products. I can't talk about IT with nothing there. Because but I think the key thing is, you have to offer something which is unique. You can't offer some product and succeed branded. You have to leverage it. What does India consist of? Yoga, tea, whatever else, Ayurveda. But still, in my opinion, the market for these kind of Indian, shall I say, ingredients or Indian practices is not that large. So if you ask me, will there be a big Indian brand globally? Some companies like, I think, company in Sri Lanka, right? They have created big brands, but very few Indian brands which are global, because to some extent we have not done in the past. All the areas where you can go are occupied by others. And unless you offer my again innovation, you're pioneering a certain critical mass which is used globally, I find it difficult. Now you can go into IT because we are offering something unique to the world. It could be some pharma also, which is again, but and branded business, I don't see globally it becoming as big as these sectors. Second question was what I didn't understand.
Multinational.
See, something you would like to do differently,
I think I am.
or you would like to.
I think we are changing organization depending on the environment. The key thing is we have to go on studying trends which are happening. Disruption is very, very crucial. We have to study disruption. I mean, the disruption could be actually a weakness, it could be a strength. And I think we have to be within that disruption rather than just observe disruption. For example, D2C is disruption. And we said we have to be a part of the disruption. We can't just sit there and watch and say that we are safe. So I always feel that whether it's digital or whatever, we have to be in that disruption itself by creating structured systems so that we understand what disruption is going on. To that extent, a lot of outside is required in terms of what's happening globally. And these trends are actually, many of the consumer trends are global trends, whether it is vegan or organic or natural. These are global trends which have started in some other countries over a period of time. It's a matter of time they are coming to India. So even in e-commerce, even in modern trade, it's a threat at one level. But we are saying that for e-commerce, for modern trade, we have to have separate structure. Our traditional teams cannot manage that because you need a different mindset to manage e-commerce. And you have to behave like a smaller player. So some of the D2C acquisitions we are doing, they are because many of our existing brands also are sold online. So that those helpful to us. So we have to have a separate structure and look at this disruptions from a positive mindset to capitalize on disruption rather than getting terrified.
Yeah, I think we need a mic.
No,
Or you come here.
in the middle, you'll have to be in the middle.
I can't believe that in a physical conversation, I'm starting the discussion with am I audible, something that we were used to only.
Okay, now we can go somewhere in the middle. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before I ask you my question, I wanted to share that I also graduated from Sidna. So
Oh,
that's
great.
the connect that we have. Right. I'm Tulika from ICICI Bank. So they say that leaders are as good as their teams, and as seniors, a constant challenge that we battle is that how every member in our team, is self-inspired to always do their best. So, Mr. Mariwala, I wanted to, request you to share your thoughts on what are the top motivation drivers, across Generation Z, the millennials, and the Generation X, please.
Oh my God.
Generation. You'll have to cover the generation.
Of people, yeah. I mean,
No, I think the biggest thing across all generations, people want to be empowered. People want to make a difference in terms of whatever they're doing, their views, their contributions. They have to see to it that I'm making a difference. To me, that's the most. In that process, learning is very important. So people want challenge, people want learning, people want different experiences. So you can get different experiences through job rotation. And also as a part of what we call wearing the organization. So if I have multiple task forces, I put you in one task force talking about, we have, say, a shadow board, where all the youngsters get along and they talk about what should the future of America. So then we are actually giving them a lot of opportunities to think beyond their role. To me, that is the biggest, shall I say, attraction, not only for the millennials, but across everybody, because ultimately we're all human beings. Of course, millennial now there is more, I don't know, they say there's more a work-life balance issue and all that, but to me, I don't think. If you like your work, then there is no work-life balance. And you have to like your work. If I, as an employer, not making you like your work, then the problem is me.
thanks.
So a lot of things you said, thought-provoking and touched a chord. The one thing I want to pick up is you said entrepreneurs never stop.
Yeah.
And just as a matter of my background, I worked almost 25 years in MNCs and now just joined a very dynamic entrepreneur who was a professional earlier like me. And his mission is to change the schooling system in India. And I must admit has been fairly successful so far in tier 2, tier 3 towns. My question to you, sir, is he's hired me to balance his idealism with realism.
Yeah.
So how do I draw the balance?
No, you're absolutely right. Ultimately, dreaming is important, but you have to dream with feet on the ground. Dreaming by itself, I want to be this, but you have to have feet on the ground. It has to be realistic. So I'm completely.
But I struggle to stop it. That so I'm.
So it's okay to dream. It's okay to be ambitious, but you have to. If you are completely unrealistic, then you'll not achieve what you set out.
So continue on your effort.
I must try harder. Oh, so just to make my thinking visible, I've been trying to develop some rules of what is a rewarded risk, what is the unrewarded risk, where do we draw the line. Sometimes it's better to wait for a few years, but I don't know the business well enough to be able to balance it. That's where I struggle.
Ultimately, it depends on the opportunity you have, and if the opportunity is big, then asking them to slow down is not good. So you have to. I'm not able to add value beyond a point.
No,
but I think ultimately dream big, but with feet on the ground.
I take encouragement in your advice.
So, this is Hemant. We are here. I wanted to
Come a little.
That's okay. I can hear it. But
So, I am picking from one word that you said, culture.
Yeah.
Which I so correlate with. My question to you is, culture encompasses the whole organization and cuts across the various generations, if you may, of the people who are working for the organization. How do you ensure that that culture, which you have, let's say, set 20 years back, is also relevant for a person who's just out of school or college, or, the entry-level employee?
I change your question a little bit. I think what your business goes through transformation, depending on the environment disruption. So our values, which are which create the culture, we revisit the values once in a few years, and some of the values we change. So I think it's important that what is the organization's interest, the value should go on changing. Some new value come, and digital savviness may come as a value, whatever. But I think culture is relevant across. I don't think at a different level, different type of, because it's an organization culture. So I can't say that for a lower level employee, culture should be one, and for a higher, it's all same across the organization.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jayant Acharya here.
Yeah.
Interested party for packaging. So plastics versus things are the way that oil has the gap between steel and plastics gone down.
It's not gone down much. I evaluated. Jinder told me to look at it. I checked with my R&D, and then I think he's put one of his executive assistant.
He'll give you a special price.
But people still prefer plastic, because it's more convenient. I don't think so. More attractive. It's more heavier, so our weight also will go up compared to plastic. So net, if you ask me, will packaging shift from plastic to tin? Not for a big brand. For a very small brand, it requires some different way of giving a message. It's okay, but for a big brand, people will not. It is huge. My cost will just go by. Yeah, 300 crores a year if I shift.
Then the second part is for premium oils. Does it make sense for a premium positioning to some oils that impact?
That's what I said. Some area where the market, it could be. I think we've seen in olive oil, you've seen some packs like Figaro and a few others are into it. So, but that's again very small volume.
Second, culture. middle level or the senior level?
How do we integrate
Them into the culture?
So I mentioned to you, we have as a part of the induction, we have 3-day induction for all middle level people. It's a 3-day program done by HR. It's like a what we call Marico orientation program. And so all the new joinees, they come in roughly on average about 25-30. When we reach that level, it is once in month or once in 2 months. All the heads of department, they take them through overall, each and every department head speaks to them. So they get an overall organizational picture. And on culture, as I said, they spend 1 full day in terms of what has led to this organizational culture, how did the values go down, what are the steps. So there is a lot of importance given to culture. We also send our people to a 6-day training program. It's a 6-day residential training program, leadership style, which is again in line with our culture, but it's a 6-day program. And again, reinforces that you need to practice a certain leadership style.
Ranjan?
So I'll take this question if nobody else has. One question, sir, you talked about that you're diversifying. So one, I think, great achievement is of Marico as a brand. Parachute itself is a huge brand. But 25 years later, we have seen that Vivendi, for example, was a water company, became a media company. Wipro was oil company, is now everything except oil, perhaps. So do you see Marico in the next 25 years becoming something far more than what it has been?
I mean, I am a focused person, so in some cases, will have completely changed as businesses. In case of Wipro, it happened out of sheer chance. But no, I think I'll talk about the future of Marico. So at the top level now, the role of the family has changed from a promoter-driven company to a strategic investor. It's very clear my son is not going to join business and take over. So, but he's on board, and I'm grooming him over a period of time. I will step down as chairman, he will take over as chairman, but non-executive chairman. Okay. So that means the role of the board, and I am not a kind of person who wants to sell all company. I am believe in perpetuity. So the business we are in is relatively defensive because by and large we are able to predict top line, bottom line, but as long as we are innovative and we have the right management skills. And if you look at the history of other FMCG companies, whether it is Sleevers or Procter & Gamble or L'Oreal, these are all family started companies, but they have survived over 100 years. So at one level, I want to drive perpetuity beyond, okay? For which the role of the board is very important. The board plays a very important role in driving perpetuity. So the most important role of the board is to select the right CEO. Okay? So whenever there is a transition in CEO, they will play a very important role in ensuring that they select the right CEO. Number two, the board will also track the culture of the organization, and still they are tracking every year the culture results. They are shared with the board. So culture strategy gets discussed at the board. Strategy can change. So culture, strategy, and we also have a purpose of the organization to make a difference to all the stakeholders. So the board role is to ensure perpetuity by selecting the right CEO and the team, and also track culture, purpose, and strategy. And I think that's how I see Marico's journey. But we are a focused company, so at this stage, it can change. But we want to be in beauty and wellness, and at least in the near future, I don't see us going beyond that.
So we've got a question from Nicha, and there are several people watching online as well. And I think refers to the CFO's role and
we have still changing role of CFO.
We have a few minutes left, so we can close.
I have to cover all the changing
role of CFO.
I had some thoughts on that.
Exactly. So the question is also on the same from one of our viewers online. So
shall we go into that then?
Yeah. I think that's a very important segment. Changing role of CFO.
I think let me say that as CFO, at one level, line and staff relations is most important. And actually, it is in most organizations, it is like a proverbial mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship.
Who's the mother-in-law, sir?
Mother-in-law is, I don't know. depending on the organization. So I think it's very important for staff to get respect from the line. Because unless you get respect, line will not be done. And to get respect, you have to master the subject of what is my business, what it should be. It's just not financial controls and so to me that, and you have to influence. You don't have authority to act on some lines. So influential ability is very important in any staff function. And ultimately, the role of staff is to help line perform better. I think these are some of the theoretical constructs in my mind. But having said that, let me just talk about how do I see the role of CFO. I think the most important thing, as I said, is the understanding of business. What is my business and what should be? Where is value being created in the business? For example, in Marico, value is created by, most value is created by brand and distribution. So where is the value creation within the organization? In a business like I, as a doctor, which is creating the value. Understand the key levers of profit also. Where is the profit? And then go on challenging business team. It's very important that finance plays that challenging role with, of course, with the board of CEO. And to that extent, all that can only happen if the finance person gets respect from the line. If that finance person starts acting like more a control mindset, then they'll be. But if you are adding value, then people will be willing to listen to you from a control. But I'm not saying that control is not important, but just control mindset will not help you leverage the organization. People perceive you more as from negative point of view. Okay, I have to do this because my financial is going. But if you are adding substantial value to the line, I think they'll be far more open to. In most organizations, I find that there is a sweet spot between profits and values. You need to determine, depending on what stage your business in, what is the sweet spot. If you want to go for volume, you want to go for profits. But I think it's very important to, depending on the journey of the organization, determine at this stage what is the sweet spot. I need not talk about inflation. I think inflation is something which is not the top of each and every organization, each and every CFO, but it's going to be continuing. My viewpoint is that inflation is not going to go away in the near future. So be prepared for far more tougher inflationary environment, interest rate environment. So many of the traditional theories of supply chain, zero inventory levels are going out of, because now all of a sudden people who are very low on supplies because of supply chain issues globally, I think they are suffering. So I think you have to question some of the earlier theories of working capital management, zero working capital management. And many times we say that we have to actually stock much more because we see the inflation is going to be much, much higher than the storage and the interest cost. So don't go by the traditional theories of finance like zero working capital, limited working capital, but go what is required for it. Especially in businesses which are B2B businesses, if you have committed to sell, say if you have machinery, if you sold, taken some advance orders, and you have to cover steel, which is really going up, it has gone up. You have to cover the steel when you book the order, because if you already have 2-year cycle of orders, and if you not book steel, and you need be stock that steel and keep it in stock rather than hoping that steel will be okay. No, so I think on that front, I'm saying that the goal of the finance head is to question some past practices and ensure that it doesn't get hit by inflation. What we do is we have what we call long and short positions. So for each of our raw materials, are we long Are we short? Depending on the environment, we decide whether we should go low on stocks or high on stocks. The second point is I want to talk about the strategy of the organization. Portfolio choice. You have many of your organizations, you have multiple portfolios. So where do you see yourself succeeding the most? Where do you have a right to win for your company? And back that by advocacy that, okay, this is one portfolio we have to go far more. That will, I think to that extent, you're playing that business role and you are ultimately helping the CEO. CEO also would be doing all that. But if you analyze it and, present something which is acceptable to the CEO at the time, because many times we go with our traditional mindset and we don't look at where are the opportunities for us to go after the right portfolio. Third is after growth. It's very important to have growth in the organization. Growth to me is like an oxygen. If you stop growing, then people will start losing interest. You have higher attrition levels, lesser challenge. So how do you drive growth is a very important part. And you can look at organic as well as inorganic. For example, in Marico, we want to have growth mindset. So when it comes to new product launches, the direction given is for it's okay not to make profit for a 3 to 5 years. But at the end of 5 years, we want to see profits coming. When it comes to new country also entering, when we went to Bangladesh, first 3 years we just went aggressive in getting market share. We saw a big opportunity rather than putting up a factory in Bangladesh. Even we were making losses, but we knew that once we build a certain critical mass, we can go back to improve supply chain and our profits will just happen. And that's what we did and it helped us. So I think growth mindset also means that in short term, you need to sacrifice profits for growth. As long as you have certain visibility of profits over a period of time. Then it comes to inorganic growth. I find that one is the reactive acquisition. People have put something, you bid for it. Other is proactive acquisition. You identify which are the targets you want to acquire and brief backers, and then some of them may materialize, some of them may not materialize. So we made multiple acquisitions in William himself was involved in Egypt and places where we brief bankers and convince the family to sell out. So that's what I think we need to look at proactive acquisition. We when it comes to reactive acquisition, I want to give an example of a brand we acquired. We were fighting with levers in coconut segment, and at some stage they decided to divest the brand. And I used to normally finance functions they do the valuation and provide a margin. So the valuation of the brand came to at that time we acquired it in 2002, around 2002. Came to about 250 crores. So normally the tendency is now let's see what others are bidding. And so all the other Indian companies are bidding like Tower, they will bid 150, 160. So we should bid 160, 170. Then we went to the board. And the board said how important is the acquisition. So the management said very important, very strategic. So the board said, why are you trying to optimize? Why are you not going all the way? If it is very important, you should not repent if you lose it. So we upped our bid. Our mindset was 160 crores. After hearing the board, we said, let's go all the way. I don't want to be in a situation where I lose the bid in trying to optimize and then repent. So we quoted 250 crores. We were way ahead of others, which is okay. But the fact that the difference between us and others was so vast that they didn't have any other competitive bidding, the deal came to us. And looking back, that has been our best acquisition. Today, the brand itself must be valued at 5 to 10,000 crores. And we are making much more money in that brand. But the mindset for strategic acquisition is don't try and optimize the price. Try go all the way so that if you lose the deal, then there is no regrets that we didn't try hard. And the normal mindset, which is human mindset, I'm not saying, but for strategic acquisitions, that mindset should not be there. When it comes to these 2-3 brands we acquired, we realized that new age entrepreneurs, they want to have a skin in the game. They don't want to divest fully. So we have acquired 54% now, and the entrepreneur is continuing for next 3 years. So we've done due diligence on him, have guardrails in terms of ensuring that he doesn't do anything hacky in terms of stocks loading in the market, and he'll exit over next 3 years. So he'll get a upside in terms of the higher base. He'll get to be active for next 3 years, and on the basis on which it is valued also is all decided. So I think that flexibility also is important to drive these, because many times entrepreneurs want to play a role and not just divest from day one. So these are some of my thoughts on acquisition. ESG, I think we've covered a lot, but I think in terms of now we started getting ESG ratings. I don't know how objective are these ratings. I've seen Standard & Poor, I've seen Crystal, and it's all industry ratings. So normally the finance companies, NBFCs get a better rating because they don't do any harm to the environment. But key thing is to identify where are you compared to your competitors, and then try and compare yourself with the competitors. And it is a continuous journey. It's something which will continue forever. Finance person, most companies are playing an important role, at least in governance, very active role, but also they become a focal point for tracking what's happening in the environment and the social from other CXOs, and then ultimately because they have to talk a lot with the investors. So ESG also, I believe that CXOs can play a role. And finally, a digital savviness. I think it's very important that if digital is very important, identify a roadmap for digital over 2 years rather than looking at digital in each and everything you do. And again, have a team which is only digital, remove escape button, have that team, very young team, because people like you and me are not digital savvy. If you get a 25, 30-year-old guy, their ability to add value to digital is going to be substantially higher than people like you. These are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, no, comprehensive. I think, yeah, we have almost come to the end of the thing. Giri?
I had one question, I think, which is, what are your hopes and fears for India?
Oh my God. I think it's a little, that's a subject I have very strong views. And I don't want to go public with my views. Which you can avoid, but I think I'm a bit worried actually, if you ask me. At one level, we have a sweet spot, I must say. But at the social level, I'm really worried.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask yourself first, exploring you are searching excellence yourself. It's very evident in your talk. Why did you have the need to partner with somebody like Mr. Ramchandra?
Oh my God. See, I'm just commerce graduate. Learning has to be there with me all the time. It's not Ramcharan, but anybody whom I can learn from. Including, I've learned a lot from people who have worked with me with the organization, even at lowest level. And I have used him as a mentor for many years. I've known him for last 20 years. Sometimes, every person needs to at least reflect what you may have a blind spot, and it's very important that you don't have that mindset that I can't learn. You have to go on talking to people. Ramcharan could be an option, but there will be many other people I talk to, listen to, because I will have blind spots. I may not think about something which others have thought about. So, but I worked with many mentors, in the past, Ramcharan or more individual mentors rather than a firm of like minded. But it's very important to interact with thought leaders, not only in the area of management, but anything related to business. So you will get new things which are happening. You have to learn. The book. So the book is my story, and at the end of each chapter, he has given his insights. So he's the author of almost 30 books. Many books have sold millions of copies. So it adds, first of all, credibility to my name. Okay. And number two, his insights capture the story into some sort of a theory, you may call it, or concept, you may call it. So it's a good combination.
Giri, you want to sum up?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah. I think, thank you so much. I think this has been a fantastic session. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us. So many learnings in this session. I was taking notes. And some of the terms you use, no escape. Dreaming with your feet on the ground. I think some of those are very, very relevant. Actually. And I think the way you have kind of, in a way, I think you didn't have an escape button when you sort of started it all in Bombay Oil, as you said, and sort of building it, transforming your family-owned company, professional company, and sort of leading the world stage of what you're doing is just brilliant. And I picked up a few points and I just wanted to just talk to you. On the right to win, I think you did speak about a few points in relation to how you pioneered and innovate. I think that for me was a big message. Every product being market leading was another thing which I thought was very important. And really focusing at a ground level on market research, understanding the customer, understanding your value chains. I think those are real. And your rat cage example is brilliant, actually, as to how you can use something as obvious but unconventional ways to convince your customers that plastic is good, actually. On talent and culture, fantastic. I think in terms of how you began your external recruitment, starting with Asia. How do you get Marico known? You talked about values. Culture is a source of competitive advantage, and it's absolutely coming from the start. Culture is such a big source of competitive advantage. The management training program, diversity, and not just gender, then gender diversity. That organization, open cultures, open offices, trust. I think, and no muster, no attendance. I think these are great. I think a lot of companies in the world don't do it. And I think culture of experimentation, agility. I think there are so many different learnings that you have lived. I think living is, it is not terms, it's something that you've done. And on governance, absolutely. I think one point you made, if it is listed, it's no longer your company. I thought that was very valuable. I think there are so many promoters. One company that I worked at, tell the promoter, you are such a big shareholder and you are destroying the value for yourself by practicing something as the CEO, actually, which affects your own value as the shareholder, actually. And I think to recognize that as a listed company is no longer your company is fantastic, actually. And also talking about benefit to all stakeholders and not just shareholders. And some of your personal examples in terms of sun paying rent for the use of office. I think these are great, which means that governance is being controlled. Transferring plans to Marico, we spoke about, is a very powerful example. And the whole thing about organization versus promoter, what is good for the organization versus what is good for the promoter. I think those are real, actually. And I think that is true. Many of us in our organizations, we see boss first as opposed to company first, actually. The company first mindset is so. And handing over the reins to a professional, I think what you're doing in terms of converting your role as a strategic investor. And also, it's fantastic. Offices like ABB and others have done it, where the families have stepped back. You see, these are great examples. And so thank you for all the wisdom and insight that you've given us. I will also take this opportunity to sort of thank ICSA for hosting this. And I invite you to come and say a few words.
So this is Pranav. I am a part of ICICI Bank. Thank you, sir. I think these were some treasure moments for us. And as ICICI Bank, I have certain number of colleagues who have really enjoyed. So I think, Giri, I would like to thank you for asking this particular thing, that can we be the host for this? So I think it's our privilege, and we are extremely blessed by the presence of each one of you out here. And I think these are treasure moments for us, both from Malingam sir as well as Mr. Mariwala. So thanks a lot. Thank you for allowing us to be the host out here. Thank you.
I just had one comment, actually, which is one thing I forgot to thank Rajiv for organizing the copies of the book. And as you were saying, Malingam and Mr. Mariwala, I just reminded that today was truly an M&M moment, actually.
Thank you, everybody. I think all the board members and friends of the CFO board for being here this morning, and Mr. Mariwala and Mr. Malingam as well. We will continue to hold these kind of gatherings in the weeks and months to come. That's what we've been doing for the last few years. And we'll be delighted to receive your feedback and suggestions. With this, we'll end the session, and please join us for lunch. Thank you.